Welcome, Wisdom's Chats, United States of America. Always has a special kind of ring to it, doesn't it? United States of America. You expect a roll. So thanks for being here. Morning in for BJ and David, afternoon to Edward, Trevor, and myself. And I'm picking up on a topic. Sorry, Edward?
I was going to say, can I just mention, I've got to drop out after 25 minutes.
Okay.
You're forgiven. You're forgiven.
We're glad you're here anyway. Thank you. So we're fitting. I'm picking up on the topic of interesting and is it unusual places to visit in the United States. That seemed to be the topic that was chosen from last week. And I'm fascinated to hear what everybody has to say. I've got some top picks, so I'm going to also add my 2 cents in. But David, what are places that you either, yeah?
How do you define interesting and unusual?
However you would like. However you would like. Whatever makes you think that it's interesting will usually be what we think is interesting and unusual. Do you have any places in mind?
One interesting place, certainly if I was a foreigner that I'd want to visit, is Boston. Boston is more or less the site of the Revolutionary War, and you have place. There's the Freedom Trail, for instance. It's basically it's a paved path. There's painted red bricks that guide you along the way, and there's monuments along the way, and it goes by a lot of historical stuff. You have the Holocaust Memorial, which is there's like 6 or maybe it's 8 big glass towers, 4-sided, and they must be 100 feet tall. And it seems like that. And on each side are written the numbers of the people who died. And it's from bottom to top on all 4 sides on all the towers. And it kind of brings that home. And you can do whale watching. And then there's the Constitution boat and just a lot of cool stuff. It's a 1.5 hour bus ride for me to get to Boston. So it's easily enough to do, at least before the pandemic. Other places, the White Mountains, the Rocky Mountains out in the West, which I've only been to once because it's a far away to get there. There's a lot of beautiful scenery. You can easily find not nice places if you want to. There's poverty in every city. I have never been to Chicago in the Midwest or that area. I stopped in the airport once on the way to California, but pretty much any kind of vacation you want to do, you could. I mean, Florida has the warmth in the beaches, and in the Northeast we have the Adirondack Sea. You can practice all your sports from, canoeing, bicycling, hiking, backpacking.
Skiing.
Whatever you want. It just depends on what you want to see. The people who make a mistake, some people try to see everything or think they can see everything within, a few weeks vacation, which is impossible. You can barely see one region in a few weeks.
It's because of the massive size of this country.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that every state will have something in it for you to see. Again, in New York, you can actually now go visit the memorial for 9/11, which is terribly moving and terribly awe-inspiring. Plus you got New York City, which is a big tourist attraction itself, Broadway and the Great White Way and all those things. And then you got Philadelphia, which is the home of brotherly love. And and you've got the Liberty Bell, and then you, as David said, you got Boston. If you go on down the coast, the East Coast is just chocked full of all kinds of things. And you never ever want to miss the Blue Ridge Mountains or the Smoky Mountains, because they are just breathtaking. Not a lot of touristy things, except when you get into Tennessee, and then you can get to Dolly Parton's amusement park, Dollywood. Then if you keep going on down and you get into Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama, they may not have a lot of what we would consider major tourist attractions. However, you will get to see some of the most stunning and breathtaking antebellum homes from the mid to late 1800s that even to this day are just amazing. Plus, you will also see, which is a shame, I have to say, you will also see remains, and still to this day, some extreme poverty that will frequently remind you of our shameless slave heritage that we have. There's still remnants down there, and people are still living in those kind of conditions, and it's unexcusable for a country that is as rich as we are. Miami is probably one of the brightest stars in the area, but then you have Orlando, which has all kinds of amusement parks, the Harry Potter, the movie studio theme parks, the stuff. Plus, as David correctly said, Florida is known for its white sand beaches, and I actually have a vial over here in this, well, I don't think you can see it, in this bookcase right here, in this bookcase. I have a vial of the most fine white sand that I picked up at Panama City Beach. It's almost like silk. It is just amazing, the texture of it, and the wharfs and all that stuff. Then you get into the central part of the states. If you get into places like Kansas, you will actually, and Missouri actually has a ton of touristy historical places. Missouri is the home of the Pony Express, and Missouri is home to St. Louis, which was the very opening of the Great Migration west during the 1800s. You get down into the southern Missouri, now you got the hillbilly country. And here in the States, there was back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and I think even nowadays, although I don't think it's the original author, but there was a very famous comic strip known as Little Abner. Daisy May, Little Abner, and I have fond memories of that, because that kind of was my culture. They have in that comic strip, they have what was called a shmoo, and it was kind of a ghost-like apparition that would appear when Little Abner would have some conversations or issues. However, it was cool because somewhere in the 50s, a psychotherapist or a psychologist, I don't remember who, came out with this brilliant marketing idea where it became an inflatable, it was just kind of bowling pin shaped animal. And it was inflated, it was made of plastic, it was inflated, and the bottom of it was all filled with sand. And the therapist used it in that practice. And anytime anybody needed aggressions, to get out aggressions or anger already, he'd punch it like a punching bag, and it was called punching the shmoo. And it was phenomenal. And for decades, it actually became a well-known practice. And I will tell you, I had one in in my closet, and I just it worked. You just punched that shmoo and got out your aggressions and took out everything. In Texas, Texas has the Alamo, which is very historical. If you go again back to Missouri, you have the home of Grandma Moses, which at age 90 became a world-class painter. Here in Iowa, we have some spots, but we're known actually for the birthplace of John Wayne and Andy Williams and the William Demarest, who was the gentleman that played on a TV show called I Love Lucy. For Donna Mills, who was the female lead in the movie It's a Wonderful Life. All these amazing artists and stuff. A lot of their talent came from right here in Iowa. Ooh. And then as you go west, well, even north, you've got David, help me. What's the mountain, the carved mountain with the presidents?
Oh, Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore, which is awe-inspiring as itself. And that, when you think of the logistics about how that carving took place on this huge mountain over decades, it didn't just happen. It took decades. And in fact, his children ended up taking over to finish because he didn't get it done in his lifetime. You have beautiful national parks everywhere, all over.
Yeah, I have to speak to that.
Yeah, they're absolutely breathtaking. If you go down southwest, again, along New Mexico and Arizona, you have a lot. We still have native Indian
Reservations.
yeah, well, yeah, but all over the country, you're gonna find from Florida, which was the Seminole, to the Midwest, which was Cherokee and Sioux, up north Sioux, but down in the Northwest, you have a bigger visibility, or sorry, Southwest. You have a bigger visibility because now you have the big Navajo reservations, and they still are very thriving. And then in New Mexico, you have what is known as the Painted Desert, and it is rock formations that are just breathtaking, that are millions and millions of years old. A lot of the photos, like Google shows on a lot of their pictures, it's just breathtaking. If you go up to the Northwest, Idaho, Wyoming, yeah, those are very sparse populated, but you still have some iconic parks. Yosemite Park, National Park, it's up there. And then up in the northwest corner in Washington State, Oregon State, that's a lumber, big lumber, anything. But Seattle, Washington is known for coffee. And they have a brand called Seattle's Best, which sorry, Seattle, anybody watching this on replay, it's not the best coffee, but it's well known, and it is the home of Starbucks. Everybody knows Starbucks. It's the home of Starbucks. Then you come down along the western coast. I will tell you, although I have not traveled that immensely, when you come down along the Highway 101 or Highway, well, I can't think of what the other one highway is, but if you come down that coastal drive, it is just jaw-dropping, because you get to see the Pacific Ocean and all the cliffs and things along there. You smell that salt air, And when you come from places like here, where I'm from in the middle of the Midwest, you have no idea what salt air, fresh, clean scent smells like, because we're landlocked. We don't get that. So,
Yeah.
and then you come down into California. Believe it or not, the Upper California is very rural. It is very farming. It's where avocados and almonds and tomatoes and fruit, a lot of produce that is produced in Upper California. Then you come on down into the more populated areas, San Francisco, known for its hills and
Mhm.
huge hills. And then you get down into San Francisco is also known for Fisherman's Wharf, which has some of the best fresh seafood ever. And then you come on down into LA, Hollywood, baby. That's where everybody wants to go. You got all the movie studios that make available tours to satisfy everybody's quest for fame and fortune and to see possibly a star somewhere. So the states have, just about every state you want to visit, there is something. And as David correctly said, if you want to come and experience the whole of the United States, plan on a year and maybe
A
2.
lifetime, probably.
Yeah, because you just cannot see it. And because when it's like any time you go somewhere, you only have a few moments to spend there and you want to know more about it. So it's not enough time to explore it.
Can't see.
BJ, you've given an absolute
Huh? Froze.
description. I mean, it's just this summary of the states as you've given. It's just incredible. I don't want to lose the opportunity to just ask Edward, because he may well have visited or want to visit places, and I know he has to dive off. So Edward, won't you just say something about places to visit in the States?
Yeah, I've been to Boston twice, and David's quite right. The Holocaust Memorial, it's quite moving, but he missed out 2 really good places in Boston. One is the fact it's the home of the Boston Marathon, the oldest marathon in the world. And I've run the Boston Marathon.
Oh, wow.
And also it's where the Friends bar is, where there was a series called Friends, and I've been in that bar. But actually, BJ left out the state that I would most like to visit, because I'm a big fan of John Muir. He was the father of the national park movement. I've read a lot of his books, but I think the parks I'd like to visit are all in Utah, because I think there's about 5 parks there. So you can visit quite a few at the same time. And the ones that really I want to go to are the Arches National Park in eastern Utah.
Gorgeous.
The Bryce Canyon National Park, where they've got lots of what they call hoodoos, big sort of columns of rock. And then there's the Zion National Park, which has got this big natural staircase. I think it's 1,500 feet staircase.
Correct.
And there's also this really nice narrow canyon that you can hike along. And then the other thing I'd love to do in the States is to go along the Pacific Crest Trail, which is on the western side of the States, and it goes from the Mexico border to the Canada border.
Yep.
It's a 100-mile walk.
It's 2,653 miles long, which is 4,270 kilometers. It would take you between 4 months and 6 months to walk it. That's maybe between 23 and 14 miles a day, which is 35 kilometers. It goes through every conceivable environment you can think of, and almost all of it is away from human beings.
Yes.
So
Very, very remote.
And there are 2 other places. There is the Sequoia National Park in California that have home of the largest, biggest most stunning trees, the sequoia redwood
Biggest in the
trees.
world. Mhm.
They are so massive in diameter that most of the drive that you take through there, they have cut out holes in the tree that you can actually drive a vehicle through.
Yeah.
And then there is also a train tour that you can take, and I believe it starts somewhere in the upper California, and it goes along the California coast, and it goes up to Western Canada, and it's called the Rocky Mountain something train ride.
Yeah.
It is the best time during fall to go through there, but it will take you through some of the most God-painted, stunning, picturesque places in the country. Those places are just there have to be. And there's something else. New Orleans. I missed New Orleans, which is home of the Mardi Gras.
Sorry, before you get to New Orleans, because I'm going to have to leave in a second, there's a
Okay.
bit I missed out, which was the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. Absolutely amazing. And when I was there, I was allowed to touch a piece of the moon because they had a piece of the moon on display there. And in those days, you could touch it. I'm going to have to disappear now, but it's fascinating. I'd love to hear more because the national parks in America are amazing.
They are. They absolutely. Thank you, Teddy Roosevelt.
And I also don't want to lose the opportunity just for Trevor to say something, because Trevor's also done a lot of travel in the States. And so, Trevor, it'll be interesting to know from your side, what were some of the standout places that you visited or that you would like to visit?
So I'm just under pressure, so I might have to fly in and out. Right, let me just see where I am. I think first of all, I just wanted to add to BJ that highway she was talking about in California was called the Dark Desert Highway. I think that's where Hotel California is based, by my favorite band, the Eagles. No, I'm just joking, BJ. All right, so I've been fortunate enough to take family down to the East Coast, Florida, and do Disney World a couple of times, and Tampa, and up the coast, Cocoa Beach and Kennedy Space Center. Just absolutely phenomenal. But the best trip ever we did about 2 years ago was going into New York. We'd missed that all the time. And New York just rose to equal with our favorite city in the world, which is Paris. And now we have an argument in the family as to whether it's Paris, New York, Paris, New York. But the sort of thing.
Contest there.
Sorry?
I no contest. I would take Paris over New York any day. New York's too big and crowded.
I don't know. I think, just listening to you guys talking about all these different areas, man, I now know why Americans don't leave America in the main. There's just there is so much to do and discover there. It's so exciting. But this place in New York absolutely blew me away, what the New Yorkers did with the High Line and how they converted that. And I think that's happening in most American cities, that you'll find these sort of things on the go. Something else, Hudson Yards. I wanted to add that in. Just phenomenal what they're doing to redo those buildings. And talking about buildings, BJ, I heard you talk about the site redevelopment or the memorial for 9/11. That had me entranced as well, because I had a firefighter friend involved in that, and so we were very close, and we went off there, and I was blown away by the Oculus building. Just the most phenomenal structure and memorial that I think anyone could actually come up with. And then to go into the depth of the foundations of the World Trade Center, gee, I mean, we had to sit down there. It was very emotional to be in there.
Isn't it? I mean, just the structure and just that location, that the emotional experience that you get is just unreal.
Yeah. Yeah, without a shadow of doubt. But I was also saddened to read, I love the development of that sculpture building the vessel in the Hudson Yards. And I read the other day that just in the last year, and this is an indication of what's happening as a result of COVID, they shut it down because of the third suicide off there. So it's just sad that these structures are utilized like this, but it's an indication of the stress that society is actually going through. And I would only wish on all Americans that what you do is go and have a look in your own backyard. You've got some of the most fantastic areas to go and travel. And you're talking to guys here who've got lions roaming in the streets. In fact, the other day we had baboons and rhinos and a hippo coming down the road here in Johannesburg. So, and we're not that far from lions in the street, but we're entranced. If we could get on a plane, which we can't at the moment, we'd be straight over there because it's fascinating. And there's David, he can't believe why I'm equating New York with Paris. I mean, they're two completely different cities, but man, you can spend, I think you can spend years in New York and not get out of blooming Manhattan, for goodness sake. And they
or
tell
Staten Island, exactly, or the Bronx,
in fact, we went across on the ferry to Staten Island, and man, you could spend a week there. But
and then you got the Statue of Liberty right there on Staten Island and going through there. So you've got all that.
No, look, it's phenomenal. But I was also watching a program by Richard Quest. I like him very much on
Oh, I
CNN.
like him.
And he's the travel sort of guru. I mean, I just want his life. He gets onto planes and he flies all over the world. He, because of the lockdown, was locked down in New York, and he decided when he had a moment to try and get out of town, he went into the park, into the outskirts of New York. I think he drove about 200, 300 Ks. And what he showed us that is on the outskirts just made us drool with envy to want to get back there, to get into New York and then drive through the state of New York because of the stuff that they actually showed us there. No, I think you guys live in a phenomenal country, and we'd probably, I know Ed, we would do trail running all over the place. In fact, one of our South Africans ran across the states from west to east coast. I think John Ball. So Ed would tell us about that, and he had a ball.
But there's far more. I mean, again, what's happening right now, in today, right? I don't know about exactly today, but right now in our time. We're getting ready, well, in the UK, they are celebrating Mayflower 400, and they have sent a replication of the Mayflower, and they're sailing it, but they're telling the story of every person on that ship as they came across, and the hazards and the illnesses and all the things that they experienced coming from Plymouth, England to Plymouth, Massachusetts. And we are not on some of those calls, I don't think, but there is a photographer in Plymouth, England, who has been commissioned by IBM to actually photograph what IBM has created and spent millions of dollars on. It's called an AI ship, and there is a proper name for it, but I don't remember it. It's the first unmanned floating ship that is going from Plymouth to here, totally scientific, unmanned. They're testing it out because it could not only just change seafaring possibilities down the road, but they are doing atmospheric testing. They're doing research on ocean and oceanography, testing weather conditions. They're testing biological fish conditions and wildlife in the ocean. They're testing things that they cannot test on from a ship or from a fishing boat, or they are utilizing all kinds of the most brilliant scientific events. That's coming up. In fact, I think that ship launches here within the next week or two. I've been following that since day one. I am fascinated by that. And one more thing that I meant, I could talk forever on this. There is one more thing that is an absolute must, and it will take a good 2 weeks. As I mentioned about New Orleans, the Mississippi River starts just a few hundred miles from the Canadian border, and it's a stream. And I mean a stream. It barely will get your feet wet if you start it. But from there on all the way down the Mississippi River, there's a cruise that you can take. And I do believe it's a week-long cruise. And it will take you through all the locks and dams. And if you've never experienced a lock and dam, oh my gosh, it doesn't sound very exciting, but it is one of the most mesmerizing experiences you can have. But as it goes through all the locks and dams down the Mississippi River, you get to see all the states that border. And I think there's like 12 or 15 states that border the Mississippi River. Then it starts in the Mississippi, or at the very top, and you end in New Orleans, and you can have the time of your life and visit that place. There's so much. I mean, again, I could talk for 2 more days about different things, and I know time's running short, but as Trevor said, we take advantage. We don't take advantage of what's right here in our own backyard. Yeah, Trevor.
And I think excuse me, I've just had to run away. I'm backwards and forwards here. But I'm sure this discussion came up because we mentioned Route 66. And I don't know if you actually covered Route 66 at all. I mean, isn't that a famous route?
Not only famous, I lived there. I actually lived there in Missouri. It starts in Chicago and it goes right outside of I think it's San Francisco. It has been, sadly, it has been decommissioned. It is no longer a tourist site because it's very expensive to maintain the highway and the traffic. It's still an existing highway, but it's been renamed. But yeah, when I was a kid in South Missouri, that was one of our favorite traveling routes back and forth to wherever we were going. And there are still, I had some photos, but I think they're gone. There are still remnants of the 30s and 40s old filling station. And old-fashioned filling station. Yeah.
No, before you come in, Lee, I've just got to say, I love a program called The American Pickers on the History Channel, because that takes you through all of those old places. Yes. Okay, Lee.
So we're coming to an end, but there's one place that you've forgotten, and it often gets forgotten. And I know that because I lived there for a year, and that is Upper Michigan. So Upper Michigan. So there's, I was an exchange student for a year in a little town called Munising, which is right on Lake Superior. Yeah. And it gets 3 feet of snow in winter. And one of my most incredible memories was going with the host dad that I was staying with, walking in snowshoes onto the middle of the lake.
Yeah.
A circle into the lake with a little hut around us, and having a fishing rod 1/2 meter long and putting a long line down and ice fishing, catching some perch. An amazing experience. And then also autumn leaves like you cannot imagine.
Breathtaking, aren't they?
So
and in Upper Michigan, there is another tourist place. I always forget the name of it, but it is a very touristy town. They allow no motor vehicles whatsoever.
No.
And it is the most gorgeous place. You either walk or bike. I've been there once and it was just amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah.
And we
Really?
didn't talk about Chicago. We didn't talk about Chicago.
Last place. So the other place I've lived for 3 months is Nashville, Tennessee. Also an amazing city.
Yes.
Amazing, beautiful, historic, beautiful river, of course, music.
Realize
So,
most
I mean, we could
don't
keep
have the
going
time.
on. So what I'm going to suggest.
I was just going to say most Americans don't
Sorry,
have
David?
or the money to go to most of these places.
Well, I mean, I know how fortunate we are. I know for myself. I've actually worked out, I've lived in the States for 18 months. And so many of the places that you mentioned today I've been to, and I just realize how very, very fortunate I have been. But I think let's carry on this conversation in a way and talk about travel. I know that one of David's favorite things to do. And so let's continue the energy and the fun of talking about favorite travel experiences, and let's share in that next week. So let's call it a day for now. But I really look forward to the stories next. Yeah. Exciting.
Drooling.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, everybody. What a fabulous time. So exciting.
Yes, thanks everyone very, very much. Save your money. Let's get out there and start traveling when we can.
Okay, bye-bye.